So I wasn't going to start the show with the Patrick Peterson retirement as a Cardinal, but I think it's fitting because we see what this team is starting to transform into, and that is a competent franchise. The Arizona Cardinals have never been a team that other organizations can point to and say, I want to be like that organization. But the Patrick Peterson stuff, I always figured he would come around and be the guy that the Arizona Cardinals franchise really looks up to as one of his tier 1 guys. All of that stuff is great. But Patrick Peterson really hated this organization. Because this is one of the things that I have pretty well sourced. I know some of the guys in that locker room from that time of the 2015 to 2010 Arizona Cardinals. And it was pretty clear that all of them hated Steve Keim. It wasn't necessarily the head coach, whether it was Cliff Kingsbury or definitely not Bruce Arians. A lot of those guys really enjoyed those people as their head coach, as their general manager, or I guess I shouldn't say as their general manager, but as their head coach. But Michael Bidwell and Steve Keim have really led the charge of incompetency when it came to that Arizona Cardinals franchise. And one of the reasons why Steve Keim kept his job for so long was because he was buddy-buddy with Michael Bidwell, which, of course, I never really agreed with, because why should you have a job simply because you're friends with someone? So, for all those reasons, the Arizona Cardinals franchise had been incompetent. And there was reasons why Patrick Peterson, a legend, former All-Pro, probably should have won a Defensive Player of the Year trophy, didn't win one here, is now coming back to the franchise. And part of that has to do with the fact that Patrick Peterson is fed up with that franchise. He didn't like the way things ended. He was kind of partially to blame for that. But now he kind of sees that things are changing around the organization. It's not the same Arizona Cardinals franchise from when he was a cornerback long ago on this team, which kind of sucks for him because I'm sure he would have liked to play with some competency, but that hasn't been the case. And it kind of leads me to, why is this now happening at this point? And it's clear. And it's if anyone in the chat or who watches the stream or who watches a breakout segment or who watches a social media post regarding these types of things. The reason why the Arizona Cardinals are now seen as a competent franchise, or at the bare minimum know what they're doing, is because of the new general manager and head coach. It's Jonathan Gannon. It's Steve Keim. I'm sorry. It's Jonathan Gannon. It's Monty Ossenfort. The Cardinals have been incompetent for most of my life, if not all of my life. And it's because Michael Bidwell was running this show like a mom and pop shop. And instead of firing guys, he made buddies with them, and that being with Steve Keim. And now when you when you push those two guys out the door, Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, who Cliff Kingsbury being a beta male of a head coach, and Steve Keim being one of the worst general managers I have ever seen, and you bring in competency like Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort, it makes guys like Patrick Peterson kind of jealous, meaning they wish they could have been a part of this franchise 10 years later when these guys stepped onto the scene. Because what Patrick Peterson had to deal with was incompetency, was a general manager that should have been fired when he got in trouble for drunk driving. And instead, they were letting go of Michael Floyd for drinking and driving, or for drinking issues. Meanwhile, Steve Keim is getting a slap on the hand and using burner phones. There's nothing about allegedly. Using burner phones allegedly. And so there's nothing about the Cardinals that bled competency. A lot of what the Cardinals was Bruce Arians and a collection of talent. Steve Keim made wrong draft pick after wrong draft pick, had run-ins with the law, and they, instead of addressing those issues accordingly, they were getting rid of players like Michael Floyd who had the same problems. And none of that rubbed any players the right way. I've talked to them. I know about it. And so when you have Monty Ossenfort in place and Jonathan Gannon in place and guys that come from competent franchises and that know how to run the show accordingly, it makes you feel a lot more positive about the direction of this franchise. And I think that's one of the reasons why Patrick Peterson decided to be the prodigal son and come on home. And I know people have pointed to Michael Bidwell and his recent introduction into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame. I understand that you get frustrated that Michael Bidwell is getting any sort of praise for being an owner of this team because he's been largely a really bad owner of this team. The Bidwells as a whole have largely ran this team into the ground. I think that's pretty clear. He has been way too involved in football side of things. We saw sometimes he'd watch film with Cliff Kingsbury when he was the head coach. So I get being frustrated that he's getting he has been introduced into the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame. But guys, in the words of my guy Alex Clancy on Locked On Cardinals, it's setting up your own birthday party and then acting surprised by it. Again, in his words, it's rich people just getting what rich people want. And also, you don't care about the Arizona Sports Hall of Fame. Neither do I. Let's not act like it's any ginormous accomplishment for someone like Michael Bidwell to be in. If I get in, great. That's cool. I don't own a franchise. Michael Bidwell is the owner of the Arizona Cardinals, and the Bidwells have owned this franchise for 100 years now, it feels like. So I don't care about it as much as other people do. But I think what Patrick Peterson is seeing, what everyone else is seeing, is that Steve Keim, the big bad man, is gone. Cliff Kingsbury, the beta male head coach, is gone. He sees what Monty Ossenfort and Jonathan Gannon has brought to this franchise, and its competency and its relevancy. It's not keeping a GM around who is running into the law for his drinking issues, but releasing Michael Bidwell but releasing Michael Floyd for the same issues. It was a double standard in that locker room for Steve Keim and the players because Michael Bidwell was his friend. Steve Keim had draft after draft where he basically took the wrong player every single time. I don't understand why Steve Keim still gets airtime with some shows. Probably because he has stories to tell, and that's interesting enough for people that have him on. And I don't hold that against those shows. But Steve Keim is awful. He has no place in this Cardinals franchise for anything successful. And I get why Patrick Peterson didn't want to be around that. But now that what you see, what's going on? That's so funny, Ivan. Michael Floyd did win a ring with the Patriots. If I'm not mistaken, he did win that ring. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what you should feel excited about is the fact that there's competency and relevancy in this franchise now because Steve Keim is gone, thank God. The beta male Cliff Kingsbury as a head coach is gone. There's no more double standards for Steve Keim, who has issues drinking and driving and his drinking issues and run-ins with the law and his incompetency to ever select the right player in the NFL draft. And you substitute that guy's out, or you substitute those guys out for Jonathan Gannon and Monty Ossenfort. That should get you excited. So much so that it is not just some sort of coincidence that Patrick Peterson is now being the prodigal son, showing back up to this franchise and wanting to make amends. No one liked Steve Keim. None of the players did. They all saw it as a double standard, and it felt like Michael Bidwell was just being buddy-buddy with his employees. And that rubbed everyone the wrong way. But now that that era is over, It instills confidence in me that this new regime really is changing the way that the Arizona Cardinals are perceived, not just by players, but also around the league from general managers and other people who might potentially want a job here. So when I see Patrick Peterson is making amends and retiring as a Cardinal, and it will only be a matter of time before he has his jersey retired too, I wouldn't be surprised if that's something that comes up today in the press conference as well. But, I mean, let's call it what it is, guys. It's not a coincidence that he's doing this now. He couldn't stand the previous regime. And it helps validate our feelings on how we felt about those two guys as well. And instead of running the Cardinals like a mom and pop shop, it seems Michael Bidwell has finally got the idea to get the hell out of the way and let football guys be football guys. So, all of that stuff is a major positive to see where this Cardinals organization is not just going to go for the limited future, for the short-term future, but also for the foreseeable future. Because once you start to hit competency and relevancy, that's where winning hits, and that makes it to where you are never just incompetent for a long stretch of times again. Because it's really hard to have any sort of viability in the NFL without being some sort of relevancy or competency. But anyone that's kind of confused on why this is happening now, that's why this is happening now. Because the big bad man is gone. And this team is finally letting football guys do football guys' work. What drove me insane is rich guy Michael Bidwell cosplaying as an NFL scout or as an NFL head coach. Let the football people take control of the football things. And that's what the Cardinals have been doing, and that should get you excited.